Growing up, I would always describe myself as like confident shy. I was like these two different people. Around my friends and my immediate family, I was really, really confident, really outgoing, always having a laugh. Yet outside of that, I was like ridiculously shy. My nan would always tell me about these stories that if I was at her house and someone knocked at the door, I'd want to run to the door to see who's there, but I'd always hide behind her legs. Or if we were at the shopping centre, the same sort of thing would happen. People would come up to her and have a little chat like, oh, is this your granddaughter? And there'd just be me hiding, not wanting to say anything, and I'd almost be mute. I wouldn't be able to say a word. Which is funny now when I look at it, because I can never really imagine myself like that. And even my mum, like more recently, told me that when I was young, I would never talk, basically. So I've got an older brother, he's 3 years older than me. And growing up, I'd always really look up to him, but apparently he'd be the only one that I would really talk to, so he'd be doing my talking for me. Now, I don't really know how that works. Like, I don't know whether I would talk to my brother and then he'd pass it on, or whether he just knew me so well as a sibling that he could just read my mind, you know, that kind of thing. But it seems like it was a ongoing theme that I would really struggle to talk to people, and I was like too nervous to express myself. So I feel like when you're young, it's really hard to sort of understand these types of things. I wasn't sure if it was just me being shy or whether there was like something deeper to it. As I got older, I started to identify some of these feelings as like a social anxiety. But that's really hard to explain. I've always said, for as long as I can remember, you never really understand anxiety unless you've struggled with anxiety. And I believe that to be true, because some of the feelings you get with anxiety are so like inward and deep rooted that you can't really explain it. It makes no sense to someone especially that doesn't understand anxiety. So like I said, as I got older, I started to understand what these feelings were. I remember once so clearly, like I used to really struggle like around my wider family, like not really knowing why, but like really struggling to sort of push past like some of the social interactions of that. And there was this one time I was like we were having a party, and we had like buffet food, but I was like too scared to like get off my seat to go and get some food, which is crazy because it's around everybody that I know, everybody that I love, everyone that I've grown up with. But this anxiety that I had in me sort of like glued me to my chair that I wasn't able to sort of move and even get some food. Another thing that I used to really struggle with was eating in front of people. I used to like hide myself away if I had to eat, like at school, at college. Even when I first started at my job, I'd have to like find a little corner to eat in because I was so nervous for people to see me eating that I just couldn't do it. I'd either go into another room or I'd go outside and eat my dinner, because to eat in front of somebody just really triggered like such horrible feelings in me. There's other situations where I struggled to go into certain shops because an anxiety in me felt like I wasn't good enough to enter into a shop. And like I said, it's really hard to sort of navigate some of those emotions, especially when you don't understand it. Within my teenage years, I started to identify some of the things I had as like anxiety attacks as well, and panic attacks, and they started to become really intense for me. I never really realised how much anxiety ruled my life. My anxiety turned into OCD, and my OCD is a whole different thing in itself, but just some of the things that caused was fear of bad things happening. I'd have to like tap things, or there was this one really weird one that if I ever said the word bored, I'd feel like something bad would happen, so I'd have to spell out the word bored instead. So I can't even put it into words. It's like a strange thing, but if I was like chatting to my mum, I'm like, oh, mum, I'm really bored, I'd instantly panic, and in my brain I'd have to be like B-O-R-E-D, B-O-R-E-D, and completely like repeat it multiple times just to make sure like nothing bad would happen. Another part of my OCD was like a real germ phobia, so I'd get like really weird about like touching things that other people had touched, or when I went on holiday, sitting on the sofa in a caravan, like I wouldn't physically be able to let my body sit on another surface that someone else had sat on. The anxiety, which we'll get into later, I feel like God healed a lot sooner than that. But the OCD side of it, that has been a process for me. And again, only in recent years, or recent months, sorry, has that actually got a lot better for me. And I'm very thankful for people in my life that has helped me to navigate that. The older I got, the worse my anxiety got. And I think a lot of the root causes of that was feeling unworthy, feeling not good enough, feeling unloved, and just feeling like I couldn't be myself. Those are all things that seem really strange because I had a very loving family. I was very confident with my family. I was always outgoing, so I was never made to feel less than. And I found that really difficult because I knew deep down within me that this anxious person or this shy person wasn't who I actually was, because I knew what it felt like to be confident. I knew what it felt like to be happy and myself at home. But anytime I stepped out of the door to go somewhere else, it was just like I was a completely different person. So when I was 16, I went to college. I met a girl. She invited me to Hillfields. And I started coming along to some of the youth evenings. So before that, I had always been a part of a church. I grew up in the Salvation Army, then I moved to Hannah Methodist Church. So church was always something that I had been a part of, and at that point, I still classified myself as a Christian. I was going to the Methodist Church on a Sunday, most Sundays, when I could be bothered. But so when this girl invited me here, I was like, okay, yeah, cool, like I could go to church, but I go to a church, so I don't really need to. So she invited me like a few times, and every time I'd make some sort of excuse, like, oh, I can't, I'm serving at my other church, like on a Sunday, or, oh, I can't, sorry, like I'm busy. And there came a point that she was like constantly inviting me. And then one day I was like, okay, fine, I'll come. So she invited me to like I think it was on a Saturday, like a Saturday youth group or a youth meeting. So I came and met everybody. Rich was preaching and he preached an incredible message, and I can just remember the whole way through thinking like, I really need a wee. Like, I need to go to the toilet, but I can't. Like, I was too scared to get up and go. So I just sort of sat there and I was like really fidgety. I was like, I need to go, like I need to get out, like I'm gonna cry, like I feel on edge, I need a wee, like everything's like, all these emotions are like running through my brain. But by the grace of God, I was able to still sit there. Rich finished the preach, then he sort of said, like, if anyone's here that wants to give their life to the Lord, like, we encourage you to come forward. Now, I still don't know to this day how, but for some reason I stood up and I went to the front. Now, again, based on like my anxiety, I was too anxious to even go to the toilet. Yet in this point, I was able to stand up and walk to the front of the church and say, actually, yeah, I want to give my life to God. And at that point, Jess came over. That's the first time I'd like spoke to her, met her, and she prayed for me, and I received Jesus into my heart. Now, looking back on it now, I only really deeped it when thinking about this testimony. Like, that was purely God, because based on like who I was and like the anxiety I had, there's no chance that me myself would have been able to do that. Like I said, I couldn't even go to the toilet. Yet now I'm stood at the front of this church in front of a load of people that I don't know, saying yes to Jesus. So from that point, I continued to pop in and out, turning up to some youth meetings, turning up to some Sunday services. So that would have been I think I gave my heart to the Lord in 2013, October, around that time anyway, I think. And then in and out for like 3 years, helping to run a little bit of kids club, do some crafts, like I said, turning up to some youth meetings, some Sunday services, all that kind of stuff. Starting to build relationships with some of the people here and actually like feeling like I'm a part of something. I never really had that feeling before, but I had that feeling here. And then, long story short, Rich messaged me in 2016, me and my mum, and sort of said, I really feel like you should come and be a part of our church. Like, there's going to be some big changes happening, like, and we want you to be involved in it. So I got the message whilst I was at work, and I thought to myself, oh, Mum's never going to leave our Methodist church, so it looks like me and Mum are going to be going to different churches from now on. I got home and she was like, oh yeah, I really feel like we need to move to Hillfields. I've already written a letter to the Methodist church saying we're leaving, like we're going to go. Now that was amazing in itself, because for my mum, this church made her uncomfortable. The Holy Spirit made her uncomfortable. But obviously God's done amazing work in that also, so praise God. So we came here in 2016, but I was still struggling. I was still battling with depression. I was still battling with anxiety. I was still battling with anxiety attacks, panic attacks. And I spoke to a few people here, and a few people were sort of helping me and encouraging me in that and sort of discipling that. But it was still a really intense feeling. So like I said, I grew up in church, I knew of God, but now I started getting more into the Word. So I started reading scriptures like, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but power, love and sound mind, or be anxious for nothing, but in all things prayer and supplication. Matthew 6, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Proverbs 3 verse 5 and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your paths. Scriptures that spoke about anxiety, scriptures that spoke about trusting in God, but scriptures that meant something to me also. So when I used to start panicking or struggling with some stuff, I would try to speak scripture over myself. In 2018, we had a healing service here. So basically that was just a day that we dedicated to God, that he could obviously come and move. We invite him every week, but you know what I mean. It was specific that if people were struggling with sickness or pain or anything else, or if there was space to ask God to come and move and heal those things. And I remember really clearly, we were sat during worship, or not sat, stood during worship, and I felt like I heard God say to me in my spirit, today I'm going to heal you from this. And I knew that he meant my anxiety and depression, I just knew. But also at that time, I was like, is it God or is it just me? We're in a healing service. Is this just me hoping that God said that, or has God actually spoken? But I had to make a choice that day to sort of believe that that was God that had spoke, saying that he will deliver me from this, he will heal me from this. And it's funny, so that would have happened on the Sunday, and the week after that was the worst week. I just remember everything bad happened, everything that would stress me out or tip me over the edge or cause me to have a panic attack, everything came at me. Yet in all of those things, I was like, no, God, you told me that you're delivering me from this, so I'm not gonna let this anxiety creep back in, or I'm not gonna let this depression creep back in, because you said, God, that you're taking this from me. So I remember trying to stand on that, and my mood really shifted, something that I know would have caused me to really stress out before had now I could kind of laugh at it. It was really weird. So that was the day I felt like God said he was going to take it from me. But of course, with all things, we know that these things are a journey. So I'm not going to say that from 2018 I've never struggled with anxiety or depression or panic attacks since. If I'm honest, I have. And there were times that they felt a lot more intense than others in that period. But for the most part, I believe that is the day that God took a lot of it away from me, because he started to teach me who I was in him. So the more I grew with God, the more I understood my identity, and the more I understood that God hasn't given me a spirit of fear. He hasn't given me these feelings of anxiety. He hasn't given me this feeling of depression. And he hasn't put anything in my path that will cause me to have a panic attack or an anxiety attack, because he gives me peace. And when you start to understand that and really believe that to be true, that's where some of the breakthrough happens, because his word is true. He is not a liar. He is not a man that he should lie. So when he says, I will give you the peace that surpasses all understanding, that is what he means. So in times of struggle, like I said, I would speak scripture over myself that would allow that peace to come and fall on me so that I would be able to handle certain situations. So a couple of weeks ago, Rich preached a message about Stockholm Syndrome. And basically, if you haven't watched it, go and check it out because it is like an incredible message. But it's a message based on how when we give our lives to God, we can still live in the past. So we are no longer who we were in the world, but we've been made a new creation in Him. So the things of past have gone, but we can sometimes run back to it. So, like I said, I felt like God said to me in 2018 that He would deliver me from this anxiety and depression. And I chose from, in that moment, to live as though He had set me free. But there were times that I would go back to anxiety. There were times that I'd go back to depression. There were times that I'd go back and fall into this anxiety attack or whatever. But I believe now it's because I was choosing to run back to that in some weird sort of way. I'm not saying that, like, I wanted to feel these things, but I'd spent most of my life living with anxiety and depression, and to be free from that feels weird in a strange kind of way because you're living in a freedom that you've not known before. So I'd find myself running back to these places because I almost found comfort in the dark places rather than in the freedom. So I think sometimes when we're struggling, we can know that God has set us free, but it's easier to run back and believe that He hasn't, because that sort of like gratifies ourselves rather than glorifies Him. So I believe anxiety is a very real thing. I don't believe that it's just some made-up thing that people say. I know for me, anxiety ruled my life for a very long time, but I also know that that is not God's plan for you or for me. I know that God's plan is way bigger than those things. It is not His plan to see any of His children suffer. So anxiety is a process, I believe. It's something that we have to walk through, but we can come out of. It's not something that we have to live in, and it is not something that defines us as a person. It is not our character, and it is not who we are. So the biggest way to combat that is literally figuring out who you are in the Word. So we can open up the Bible and we can read multiple scriptures that say you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are unique. God has a plan and a purpose for you. So His scriptures are true, that you are a masterpiece. Something else I'd really like to add is just that God is patient. So I know for me there was times that He was really, really patient and really gracious with me. Like when I was like refusing to step forward, He was still walking beside me in that, like coaching me and cheering me on sort of thing. So He will work with you. It's not like you have to do these things alone. He is right beside you, helping you in these processes. There's so many times that there were things that I never thought I'd be able to do. So like I said, I'm the youth leader here. But if you would have said to me 10 years ago that that's who I would be and what I would be doing, I would have laughed in your face like, you don't know me, that's not gonna happen. Or even being sat in front of this camera right now. Funny but crazily embarrassing moment was in 2019 when I first sat behind a camera. We spoke recently about who do you represent at Roots or something, didn't we?
Yeah.
But it's just so important, especially obviously at the moment, being that light for people. This is why we've set up the channel, so we can bring that encouragement to you guys. Because we were doing like a video for the church of like what God's done or something like that, I can't even remember. And we were sat downstairs and obviously Jab set up his camera and everything, and I'm sat there and I'm all curled up and I'm like, yeah, God is really good. And honestly, it's the most embarrassing video I've ever seen in my life. Like, I look at it now and I just think, why? Why did we post that? Why did I do it? So sitting behind a or in front of a camera recording something would have been like a complete no-go to the Tash that I was. Or even like preaching in front of people, like that's taken me a long time to like build the confidence in, to stand at the front or stand in front of the youth and like teach a message. Because again, for me, my anxiety came from a place of not feeling good enough. So when I'm now stood in front of the kids and I'm like teaching something, I'm battling with this thing of like, but who am I to do that? Like, do you not know who I am? Like, I'm this shy girl that can't talk, or I'm this anxious person that panics all the time. And there were times that would happen. And some of the kids in our youth group can testify firsthand how I'd be preaching a message on the stage on a Friday night, then crying in the corner at the end of the night, because I'd be freaking out. So the thing is, like, God works with you in that, and he helps you to like grow in that. So it's no longer us that's doing it, it's like God working through us, and that's something we have to sort of like understand also. I just want to share like a really quick testimony, again, that I just thought of recently. So in 2019, we first started the Ladies' Days. I think it started in September, I want to say, if I'm wrong, and correct me, I'm sorry. But like September 2019, I think it was. And I remember the first time that we obviously did a Ladies' Day, I walked in through that door and I saw the setup, and it was beautiful. It was so lush. And I just cried, and I panicked, and I couldn't breathe. So I ran straight through the hall, upstairs into the toilets, and I sat there for 30 minutes and just cried, because I was like panicking so much, because the layout of the environment just triggered an anxiety in me that like I hadn't felt before. Well, I had, but I hadn't like psyched myself up for at that moment. So I cried for about half an hour, then I came back down and I sat near the door so I could like escape if I needed to. And then literally like within a year, October 2020, I was stood at this very same Ladies' Day sharing a testimony of like what God has done. Now, even in that space of a year of like the first Ladies' Day, I'm like a complete mess, and my anxiety and my panic attacks are like through the roof. But a year later, like I'm stood sharing a testimony. And even in that testimony, I'm not gonna lie, when I look at it now, I cringe, because I can like see the anxiety in my body, and I can hear the anxiety in my voice. And you could just see it all over me. It was really great. We saw kids meeting with God, like worshiping. We then saw one of our kids baptized, or two of our kids baptized. But it's like, but that's a testimony of what God can do, because that is not the Tash that I thought I was. And even now, 5 years on from that, we've just done Sold Out. And my thing has always been like, I can talk in front of kids, but I can't talk in front of adults. But we're preaching at Sold Out in front of kids and adults I don't even know. And not at one point during the preach did I feel like I couldn't do this. But again, not through my own works, because I know that that's not me. But because God is so good, like it was him that has allowed me to be able to do those types of things. So I'll probably look back on that in a couple of years' time and be like, whoa, that's so embarrassing, like I'm doing right now. But it's all just little steps in the journey that like God has done. And when we put our trust in him, he can do such amazing things that we never thought were possible. Like, again, I look at the Tash of 2013 who suffered so badly with like, or not even 2013, like 2018. I think that was my worst year, my 2018 year. But when I look at that Tash, 21 years old, who's just like crippled with anxiety and panic and depression and everything, to like the Tash that I can see now, it is only by the grace of God. And I just want to share this testimony as like an encouragement that who you think you are, or like the things that you struggle with, that doesn't have to define you. So if you're someone that struggles with anxiety, like just know that that isn't you. Like God doesn't want that for you. He wants to deliver you from those things. And he has got such amazing plans for you that he can do exceedingly abundantly above all that you can ask, think or imagine. And I know that firsthand through like what he's done in my life. So I heard this statement the other day, and it said, the opposite to anxiety is trust. And when you have trust, you have peace. And I love it, and I couldn't agree more. Anxiety is based off of like insecurity or uncertainty. And the opposite of that is trusting in something. But we're not just trusting in anything, we're trusting in God. So to combat anxiety, you trust in Him. And when you trust in Him, you get peace. Now, we know our church motto here is church is family. And I was always confident with my family. I was always myself with my family. And that's the environment that we're trying to create here, is that you can come and you can be yourself and you can know that you are loved by your brothers and sisters in Christ. And when you have that like trust, you can have peace. So it's trusting in the people that God has put in your life. They're here to be your biggest supporters. And again, that's another massive thing that has helped me in my journey, is really starting to trust and believe and understand that the people that God has given me have been the people that have helped me in my journey. So God is obviously a massive part in that, and He does the transformation in us. But He has also given us a bunch of people around us that love us, that support us and want to like see us succeed. So for me, I'm so grateful for the people that God has put in my life that have like championed me, that have loved me, that have supported me, that have helped me to overcome so many things. Because yes, God has done the work, but the family help to like navigate that too. So yeah, this is just an encouragement to anybody that is watching this, whether you're part of our church family or not. My advice would be, if you're struggling with these things, find yourself a place that you feel loved, that you feel safe and you feel supported. Because when you feel safe, that's when you can grow and truly be yourself. So yeah, that's just like a testimony of my life and how God has delivered me. Like, He is so good. So if you're struggling with anxiety, please seek help if you need to, but just know that you are loved. God has a plan for you, and this isn't His plan for your life, to suffer with such things, but His plan is to give you peace.